Welcome to the Convergent Impact Leadership Podcast, where we explore real leadership stories and strategies to inspire meaningful action and purpose. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting out, this podcast is here to help you lead with intent, build trust, and strengthen relationships in your organization. I'm Eric Savickas, bringing over 30 years of leadership experience from my time as a retired U.S. Army officer, university instructor, and currently as a leadership coach working with the fire service. Today, I'm joined by Chief Randy Royal, Fire Chief of the Colorado Springs Fire Department. Chief Royal has served in emergency services for over 42 years, with 28 years as a paramedic, and has been with Colorado Springs Fire since 1987. Over his career, he's held numerous leadership roles, including battalion chief, shift commander, deputy chief, and now fire chief. He's presented at major conferences, earned both the Executive Fire Officer designation and the Chief Fire Officer credential, and was named the 2024 Career Fire Chief of the Year by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. We'll explore his leadership journey, what he's learned about shaping culture, developing future leaders, and navigating change in one of Colorado's largest departments. Chief Royal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm honored to be here.
So let's start at the beginning for you. What first brought you into emergency services and what made you stick with it for multiple decades now?
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny because this wasn't my career path when I went off to college. This wasn't what I was planning to do. I actually was doing a major in sociology and a minor in psychology and a minor in theology and was going to do youth ministry. And tied to that, because in the summer I worked at youth ministry camps, I had to get a very standard basic first aid because I was driving kids around in Jeeps. And I did that, and that kind of spiked my interest in this medical field. College, I ended up taking an advanced first aid and an emergency medical technician as elective classes because I thought, man, these are great electives. I can, use them. And I started doing ambulance work part-time while I was still going to college. And this is where I tell people God knew me better than I knew myself, because I wasn't the type of youth minister that I could go out and reach or, raise my own funds to live on. So 2 weeks before I graduated from college, I had a guy that I met as I was getting trained that called me up and said, "Hey, we're starting an ambulance company in Colorado Springs. Do you want to work?" And I didn't have a job, so I went, "Sure." And from that day on, I was in emergency response. So I spent 9 years as a paramedic for a private ambulance company. And then now, 37 years ago, I joined the Colorado Springs Fire Department, and I've been doing it ever since. And I still did youth ministry for almost 30 years.
Wow.
With my schedule, it worked out where I could work with high schoolers and get there and spend time with them. So it ended up being the perfect mix for me.
Nice. So before we got on here, I was telling you how I was stationed in Colorado Springs in the mid 90s at Fort Carson and how Colorado Springs has seen so many changes over the years, and it was such a surprise when my wife and I came back to Colorado after I retired of how big the city has gotten with its growth and development. And you've spent all your time here as well. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen over the years in the department and in the fire service overall?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. One is obviously as the city has grown, we have grown a lot as well, and our call volume has grown. So we've been running about 80,000 calls a year. And again, if you go back when I first got on, I bet you it was maybe 25,000 calls, something like that. The bulk of those, 80% of them are medical. And we've seen a big significant change in that as well. One of the things I share when I talk to people is that, so I go back into the 70s as far as doing emergency response. 911 started late 60s, early 70s, starting in the Jacksonville, Florida area and one place out in California. But when it was initially set up, it was for critical emergencies, right? Whether it's fire or medical or whatever. And so I specifically remember running on and taking like little old ladies and little old men that had broken bones that were sticking out of the skin, and they'd be apologizing. They'd be going like, "I'm so sorry I called you because I know this is only for critical emergencies." I'm going like, "No, no, 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 you called for the right reason," you know? But what has happened is it has morphed across the country to where 911 is like a lot of people's first access to care now. They don't have insurance, they don't have transportation, they don't have the means to figure it out on their own. So they call 911. So because of that, we're running a lot of things that aren't critical emergencies. You know, I mean, sprained ankles or people with the flu or tooth pain and things like that. So that's been a major change. And we have been, and actually we're internationally known for the changes that we have done in the last about 12 to 15 years to address that rising call volume and get the right care to the people that need it. And at the same time, free up our critical resources, our paramedics and our fire apparatus to be available for critical calls, whether it's a fire or medical. So if you can imagine, you know, if one of our crews is running on a sprained ankle and a fire comes in or a shooting comes in or a cardiac arrest comes in, we can't just leave that sprained ankle and go to that, even though that's what our people want to do. So with these changes that we've made, now our apparatus are less likely to be on those calls and available for those critical calls that come in. So that's one side of it. And then real quickly on the other side of it, on the fire side, we're still running working structure fires almost every single day. We have at least one, if not 2 to 3 or 4. Fire prevention has been working over the years. So we've seen less structure fires, but fire has gotten more dangerous in my career. So when I started out, most of the fires that were burning were natural products, wood, paper, plant-based materials, right? Now they're almost all petroleum-based. They're plastics, they're, you know, polyurethanes, they're, you know, our carpeting, our furniture, our computers, all the stuff inside of our house actually fuel from the fires. So fires have become more dangerous and they get more violent quicker than they did 30, 40 years ago. And so we're seeing more rescues now than we did 30, 20, 30 years ago is because people can't get out in time. And so, and they're more dangerous for our firefighters, both in being violent and being more cancer based as well.
So, even with increased fire prevention measures and education, the fuels and the construction of things now still make it that doesn't offset the danger. It's still very
Right.
much more
Yeah,
dangerous than it used to be.
because we've seen a decrease in time. So if you go back in time, again, 30 years ago, a smoke alarm would give you about 17 minutes to get out of your house. From the time the smoke hit it, you know, say you had a kitchen fire and it was going up in the cabinets, hit the smoke alarm, you could easily get out of your house quickly, right? Well, now that time is down to 3 to 4 minutes. So you have to make decisions very quickly and have a plan to get out of your house. And it's actually gotten worse than that. Now it can also, depending if you have a lithium battery and tied to that, so a battery that's tied to your cell phone or tied to your toolkit or your car, your vehicle that's in your garage is an electric vehicle. If there's a lithium battery tied to that, those fires can be less than 3 to 4 minutes. You could be talking about a 1 minute time period before you can get out of your house safely. And we're only going to see increases in those type of fires because of the use of lithium batteries. That has been a significant increase that is making fire more dangerous.
And I think I remember at a conference or something hearing, and I'm not a fire guy, but I think I heard somebody say that closed interior doors makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, we try to encourage people, especially you have your kids, you know, some parents tend to leave those doors open so they can
Right.
hear them. That's not a good plan. If you're in a house and say at night, you know, your couch catches on fire for some reason, if you have your doors open, the fire has a way higher percentage of getting to you, but the smoke's going to get to you. And the smoke is what kills most people in the fire. If your doors are closed, those doors will give you 30, 40 minutes, even up to an hour before it would reach that door, which gives us plenty of time to get to your windows and get you out of your house if you can't make it out in the initial phase of it. So shutting the doors are really important.
Interesting. Can I go back to us for a second to what you said about the increase in medical calls? I think I remember again at a conference hearing somebody, it may have been like Gary Brees saying or asking the question rhetorically, or are we a fire department or fire departments that run medical calls, or are we medical departments now that run as a secondary fire? Has that been true that thought in your mind as you've evolved in your time here at Colorado Springs that with the increase in medical calls, maybe we need to switch our mindset of our entire existence? Or are we still truly fire departments that also don't do medical?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true for every department in the nation, that they have that same kind of percentage. About anywhere from 70 to 80% of their calls are medical, and fires slash rescues slash hazmat. Fires are a very small percentage of our calls. When you look at 80,000 for us, actual working fires, we might have, and when I say working structure fires, where we're actually laying lines, doing hose work, we probably have about 450 of those a year, maybe 500. And I think we're higher than a lot of departments. I think a lot of departments have even smaller numbers than that. Now we have hazmat calls, we have grass fires, we have, dumpster fires, we have all those as well. But it's a very small percentage. The bulk of our business is medical and, life rescue through medical care. And I think that's true with almost every department in the nation.
And is that a tough pill to swallow for some, like culturally, like when, and again, I'm a military guy, but just I imagine that, with my experience in the military, it was probably similar that you adhere to a lot of the traditions and a lot of that stuff becomes your identity. And that's what you really look towards when you're thinking about joining. And so as folks are entering the academies now and they're wanting a career in the fire service, are they getting in it for one reason and realizing it might be different once they're there, or are folks largely embracing that things have shifted more towards the medical side?
Yeah, I think that can happen. We try to really, when we're recruiting people and when they're coming in through our training academy, we try to really quickly let them understand that fire is still part of our job. And the thing that they have to remember, and we all have to remember, is that we have to train all the time on firefighting, just because it is a very dangerous, in fires and rescues, they're very dangerous situations, and we have to be really good at it when it does happen. So they still get a lot of fire foundation and basis and training. But the reality is, we're going to save a lot more lives on the medical side of the house than the fire side of the house, because the cardiac arrests, the baby deliveries, the shootings, the stabbings. We're doing a whole bunch now with whole blood, delivering blood in the field. We're saving way more lives on that side than we are on the fire side, and people get it now. It's just part of our culture now, and we require everybody to come on with an emergency medical technician basic. So all of our firefighters are trained at that level, and then we have about 100 and probably 40 to 50 of our firefighters are paramedics at the advanced level. So it's just part of our culture now. So I don't think, everybody likes to get the big fire, because it's exciting, and you get to use those skills, but they also realize that that's the exception, not the rule.
And so in Colorado Springs with your dispatch, when you guys get toned, do you have a fairly good idea of what type of call it is so that you can tailor your response? Or
Yes.
are you still, and I say still, I don't know if this is standard or not standard, but are you rolling engines and large apparatus with bunker gear, turnout gear for all calls just in case?
No, it's pretty much by the time they're heading to their unit, they know already if it's a medical or a traffic accident or a structure fire or a rescue. So on the medicals, they typically aren't in their firefighting gear unless it's a traffic accident. They are going to be in their bunker gear, going on traffic accidents. If it's a rescue, depending on what type of rescue it is, they may be in different equipment. If it's a water rescue or a high angle rescue or something like that, they know that by the time they get on their engine. So it happens pretty quick.
And so, and that's also, you mentioned earlier, some of the cancer prevention stuff that you guys are exposed to, that probably helps you where you're not wearing the turnout gear all the time. Maybe you're in, I don't know what you guys
Right.
wear. Maybe it's like single layer tech gen type stuff or,
Yeah, typically on most, again, 80% of calls to medicals, other than the traffic accidents or some kind of off rescue, they're just in regular Class B or
okay.
uniform or T-shirt and pants, that type of thing, and then they put on gloves and masks and those type of things when needed.
Let's talk a little bit about leadership stuff. So, in your over 42-year career, at some point, leadership became attractive to you and you were given the opportunity to compete for a leadership position, I assume. How has your initial thoughts of leadership when you were a company officer evolved and changed over the years as you advanced in rank to where you are now as a fire chief?
Yeah, I'd say I've always had an interest in leadership, and even going back to high school, had leadership roles and those type of things. But, for me, so I came on, I was a firefighter. I came on as a paramedic before I even got on the job. So I quickly became into a paramedic position, which for us is a promoted position, just like driver is as well. So I promoted to paramedic and continued to do that. And then, and I've been, like I say, because I was a paramedic for 8 or 9 years before I came on our job. And then probably for another 5 years on our job was a paramedic just strictly, and then decided to get in the company officer role. And one of it was new challenges. I like new challenges, and I knew that that would be a new challenge. And then the other thing that was inviting is that you get to have a bigger impact, right, on the job and on people. So I promoted to a lieutenant position, and I tell people coming on, if you ever get bored in the fire service, you're doing something wrong, right? Because you have a couple options. So I tell our trainees when they come on, as you look at your career, I mean, enjoy being a firefighter and loving that part of it. But at some point, you may want to become a driver. You may want to become a paramedic and use new skill sets and learn new things. And then the other option you have, other than promoting up, is to move it to different programs. You're in our wildfire program, you're in our heavy rescue program, you're in our high angle program, you're in our tactical medical program. So you have those options to learn new skill sets and those type of things. And then as you get experience, then you have the opportunity to become a company officer. The challenge there is you get the chance to increase your roles and your responsibilities, and you get to take on new challenges. And then you also get to have a bigger impact on other people. So I really, that's kind of how I looked at it too, is I have a chance now as a company officer to impact my crew and lead them. And then so you go from lieutenant to captain, you end up running a station and managing either one crew or two crews in a station and have ownership for that station. And then the next level is a battalion chief. And so then you have impact over stations, right? And so each one of those, and I tell people, so on our badges and on our collar brass is a bugle, right? And the bugle goes back in the history and tradition. That signifies a company officer, because back in the old days before we had radios, we have a couple in our museum, but they're bugles, like the long bugles like this.
Uh-huh.
And the company officer used to yell for those bugles orders to the people on the fire ground and to his crew. And our old original 1870 helmets had a firefighter over the top of the high point of the helmet holding a bugle yelling orders.
Okay.
And it's really cool because that was from the 1870s.
Yeah.
But what I tell folks is you get your first bugle as a lieutenant, you're just stepping into the role as a supervisor and learning those roles and responsibilities. And now you don't have just responsibility for your own safety. Now you have 3 to more people that you have responsibility for their safety as well. And each time you get another bugle, so a captain, you get 2, and then if you go to battalion chief, you have 2 cross and they're gold.
Mhm.
There's more weight and there's more responsibility because of what you have to do.
You mentioned battalion chiefs. In May, I'm talking about, at least on my social media and blog posts and stuff, talking about that transition for fire officers going from being in a company officer position with a crew right there in the station to getting promoted to battalion chief or division chief and beyond. When you're talking to your battalion chiefs, how are you helping guide them and help them with their mindset to find the balance between one day being there in the trenches, in the station with the crews, and now being a little bit detached from that. So that may have been their comfort zone, but now they've got a bigger focus. So what we would call in the military at the operational level of leadership, just underneath the strategic level. What kind of conversations do you have and what do you do to get those battalion chiefs to have that correct mindset and find that balance?
Yeah, so it's really stepping from the company officer level to the BC level is really putting one foot into more the administrative side and management side, and keeping one foot in the operations, right? And so for me, I talk a lot about mission first, people always, and you being from the military background, you probably heard that before. When I first grabbed that, it was and I'm not going to remember his name, but he was one of the generals over the Iraqi wars, Cajun guy.
Uh-huh.
He said that the media came to him and asked, what's more important, the mission of the Army or its people? And he said, mission first, people always. And I remember kind of giggling about it because he was like, that really didn't answer the media's question, but I liked the answer because both of them
Right.
are important, right? So in our BCs, especially, we try to instill that culture is that they have the job of making sure all of our crews are really good at what we do, medical, fire, and all that. Now, that doesn't mean they have to do all the training, but they have to do the oversight and make sure as they run with those crews that they're meeting that expectation. At the same time, they're on the front lines of making sure our people are feeling valued, that they're getting taken care of, that they're being heard. So especially for us in what we call mahogany roll up here at the top of the building, that we're hearing from our crews what their needs are, what their concerns are, and those type of things. So that even though we don't get to see them every day, they're feeling valued from us as well, So it's that mission first, people always, making sure that our folks are ready to go, but they're also getting what they need to do the job and that they're feeling valued at the same time.
And it's good to hear you talking about that. And I know there's some departments out there that say things like mission first, people always, but that tends to just be a slogan and the mission is the thing. And I'm not trying to say it isn't, but that almost gives them an out or an excuse for not taking care of the people. And you really know when you're doing it well, right? You can grab any firefighter or in the military any soldier and ask them, do you feel like you're taken care of here, or what's your general opinion? And you'll get people that say, I love it here, which is what you want, or you'll get the people that say, excuse my language, this place sucks.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not because of necessarily the job that they're doing as a firefighter or as a paramedic. It's because they don't feel cared about or taken care of, or like their leaders, are looking out for them. Related to mission first, people always, we used to have a saying in the Army called taking care of soldiers. And it's funny because the perspective of taking care of soldiers is different depending on who you are. From the soldier perspective, that meant to them in large part, and we giving them time off, or we letting them take a break or whatever. But from a leader perspective, it's I'm taking care of you by training you hard so that when we get deployed, you come home.
Right.
I wonder if that resonates with you at all when you talk about mission first, people always, how it's sometimes a little bit different depending on what role you're in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's instilling that culture throughout, and one, making sure you're, like you said, yeah, you can say that and not do it, right? And then then it's just smoke and mirrors, right? But if you instill it and you really try to help people be successful and know, because I can tell you from our department, there's times in our department where we weren't that. People did not want to interact with the upper management here because they just felt like they're going to get their butts kicked, or they're going to get accused of something, or they didn't have their backs. And it was more, they wasn't seeking out the facts when we had disciplinary things. It was just reacting to it and causing a lot of discomfort. So we really, even when somebody's getting sideways, whether it's due to mental health or due to, substance abuse or something like that, we really try to instill the fact that we want them to be successful. And we're going to try to do everything we can to help them be successful. Now, they still get to make choices. So at some point, if they're continue to make bad choices, then we have to protect our citizens, right? But that's the exception rather than the rule when we have to let somebody go. We have success cases on our job with people that had significant substance abuse, alcohol and drugs, that are still working here today, and they're doing great. They're thriving. So when you can show those type of people, and those people we have a studio here at our department where we can broadcast to all of our stations. Some of those folks have shared their story on that because they have felt valued and they have felt that we have helped them through a really difficult time, and they're still here working. That goes way down the road to showing people that we care about them. But at the same time, we got to show by example that we care about our citizens and know that our mission is really important to saving lives out there on the
Sure.
streets and doing everything we can to get them the tools and the support. That's really, really hard also because we have a very limited budget. I think I shared that with you. Our budget is really tight here. We're not like a lot of departments that have, there's a lot of departments that have a lot more money than we have. I would put us up against any department out there with what we do to serve our community. That comes back to our folks being willing to really work hard and do that service.
Well, I think every department that I've run into would say that they don't have the budget. Maybe
Yeah.
because I'm a consultant and they're just telling me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the hardest lessons for me as I was going through my military career was that even though we talked about mission first, people always, and we knew in the back of our minds that taking care of people is our business. I think, though, like deeper than that, when you talk about mental health and resilience and that kind of level of taking care of firefighters or soldiers in my case, didn't really click until somewhere after the Iraq War started and the Afghanistan wars. And we really saw that people were coming back and struggling a bit. And then the military started going more formal into resilience programs and mental health programs. Was that a similar shift for you where like you knew inherently we did have to do that stuff, but it was more of a culture of, I don't know what the right word is, bravado, like, hey, just suck it up and do your job and it'll all be okay. You could take a knee later versus now, like maybe that's inherent in everything that we do at all times that we're looking at those types of initiatives and programs. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think that was a transition. And I would really say coming out of the post Vietnam era, because the guy when I first started working, there was a lot of our guys that were that post Vietnam.
Mhm.
And that was still kind of the suck it up and work hard and don't let your emotions go, those type of things. And there was a lot of struggle for some of those guys because they weren't healthy, right? Mental health wise, and it wasn't manly to you know, let your emotions, and we see bad stuff. I mean, we deal with bad stuff. We deal with death all the time, especially when it comes to kids and those type of things. It's really tough. But what we started seeing toward the late 80s, early 90s, there was basically a mental wellness initiative called Critical Incident Stress Debriefing, where after a big incident, you could bring people together and kind of share. We started off with that, and we actually had a couple, and actually I was involved with that pretty early on of helping set that up and for our department. And we had a couple within 24 hours, we had two significant events. One, a plane crash with multiple deaths on it, and then a nursing home fire with 11 people dying in it in the same 24-hour period. And some people were on both of those calls, that was pretty significant. But what we quickly found out that wasn't really the right model for us. I think there are still places out there that are using it, but it's more a group setting, and it's just not a comfortable place for everybody that feels safe to share how they're feeling. And so we've changed that model, and we do what's called a peer support program. That has changed our culture as well, and we've been doing it now for 20 plus years, where it is acceptable to if you're having an issue with a call or situation or whatever, whether it's at home or at work, to come forth and seek help. And the peer supporters are, just like it says, are fellow firefighters and staff that after a significant event, they'll reach out and just come by and, hey, how you doing? How's that? And if people feel motivated or want to talk further about it, they can, and they have the resources to get more help if they need it. So that stigma of feeling bad about a call or just not comfortable with it, I think has really gone for the most part to the wayside. And people are willing, because we track the numbers of people going, and not to be shared as far as name and stuff, who's seeking help, but the door is open there, and they know what's there, and they know they can get help. And then going back to some of those folks I've shared with you about that did have alcohol, drug issues and stuff, and seeing their success of getting through it has really taken away that stigma. And so now it's the expectation and not the negative.
And that's great, but probably still a ways to go, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think it's always one, you have to provide that support, and two, you have to lead by example that you are going to take care of people in those times. You're not going to beat them down. And if we, as an administration, whenever those folks came along, are kicking their butts, going like, yeah, you have a substance abuse problem, but you can't take care of your job, so we're going to kick your butt until that's not going to go over well. right? But if we're doing it from the heart of, we want you to be successful, we do care about you, we want you to be healthy because that helps us do a better job as well and meet our mission, and it takes care of your family, and we want you to survive this job so you can spend your retirement with your family. If we're walking the walk, then it's accepted more.
It's funny, while not exactly the same as resilience or mental health, I'll go into a workshop or something with a department and I'll mention, all right, let's talk about vulnerability or let's talk about authenticity and the shields will
Yeah.
go up.
Oh, yeah.
And so there is still a ways to go with some of that stuff. Let's talk about you for a second and probably not comfortable to talk about you, but I'm going to anyways. So you were the Career Fire Chief of the Year in 2024. You were also the State Fire Chief of the Year. Was that 2023?
You're right. Yes, in 2012.
Yeah, because I remember you introduced me to a breakout session that I was leading at the
That's right. Yeah.
Fire Leadership Challenge conference at Keystone. I say it as a claim to fame. I would tell people I know, hey, I had the chief of the year introduce me for my session. So I was pretty pleased with that. But what does that mean for you being recognized like that? I would imagine that it's probably nothing that you would say is had to do with just you and it's bigger than that. But I'm curious, when you look back at accomplishments like that with a very large and distinguished career, what are you most proud of?
Well, I tell you, when people ask me about that, I actually had somebody today ask me about that, and I tell them, you know what I like about it is it gives me the opportunity to say that we have really good people that make me look good. You know,
Hmm.
because it's definitely not me. It's about our whole organization and the work that we've done and all. You know, I would say now at this point in my career, it's really looking back at that culture and talk about the mission first. People always is. I truly believe in that, and I try to set that example. And my hope is, probably not all 600 of our employees, but my hope is that most all of them would feel comfortable walking in my door and laying a big, hard question on me and not feeling like I was going to kick their butt or throw them out on their heads because I wouldn't. So I think it's still in that culture to where I want us to be the best in the nation at what we do because it means lives and it means protecting our community. And that's what we're here for. But at the same time, I want our folks to know that they are truly valued and taken care of, and in that we want them to have I mean, I've had a great 37 years in this department. I would love everybody to have, whatever, if it's 25, 30, 35 years for them, uh, to be able to walk out of here with the same energy that they came in the door of loving this job. And that's one of the things I share with people. I get the chance to tell you every morning that I've come in. Now it's a little harder in this role, but especially when I was at the stations, every morning I'd look forward to coming to work, because it
Hmm.
meant new challenges and new experiences and new impacts on our community. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is just I think myself, and again, it's not just me, but it's especially my direct reports and the team I have together of really changing our culture and making it a place that people want to work at.
I love that. That sounds great. As we look at the next generation of fire service leaders coming up, what's a particular skill or mindset that you think they probably need to think about and is critical to them? And it may be something that was just as critical for you 42 years ago, or it may be something different, but what's something that you would love to see those folks embrace?
I would say the biggest thing, and it would be true for me as to true to, for me going back when I started, but I think it's going to continue for the folks coming in the door is we have to be adaptable
Mhm.
and ready for change. And I can't remember if it was Backdraft or one of those movies. There was a sign up there that said, I think it was Chicago Fire, and it was said something like 200 years of tradition
Yeah,
unimpeded by change or something like that. Yeah, the reality is, there's some traditions that we should hold on to and I think are important and that is service, right? to our community and being dedicated to the point of losing our own lives to save somebody else's. That is part of why we swear and get these badges, is we swear to do that. That's important, and we need people that are willing to step up and do that. Now, at the same time, we need to be forward thinking and adapting to the changes, including like lithium batteries. That's changing how we fight fire and how we engage the enemy. And we have to be open to that, because if we fight fire the same way we did 35, 40 years ago, we're going to get more people, not only our own firefighters, but we're going to lose more civilians because they're dying because they can't get out quick enough,
Uh-huh.
where we should be focusing on their rescues and fighting fire differently. There's going to be no more technology coming down the road. We're using drones now out there on our incidents. You can say, oh, why do we need that? Well, it's bringing another level of safety to our crews, and more information to our incident commanders, so where they can manage our safety better. So being open and adaptable to those changes and thinking outside the box. So one of the things I shared about how we're addressing our increase in call volume due to the medical calls. We're doing things that we've had 85 different departments from around the nation and a couple from outside of our country come and look at our programs, because we're trying to get the right care to the to our citizens at the right time with the right response. Now you can sit on the other side and go like, "Oh, you're taking away our calls and you're taking away our work." No, we're actually getting you more opportunity to do the critical work that you should be doing by removing these calls from you. So
Uh-huh.
we just have to be open and adaptable. That was a long answer to that one, but
No, no, it's funny as you're talking about change, I'm reminded of and I forget who this is attributed to, but the quote that the only constant is change.
yeah,
But it's funny though, if the only constant is change and change is happening all the time, you would think we'd be better at it by now, right?
yeah, yeah.
But we're not. It's still a hard lesson to learn. Each time it comes around, people are, like, "Hey, what's this mean for me?" And there's a self-defense mechanism there, but we have to keep pushing.
I think not changing is the comfortable place, right? Because change, there's risk in change, and there's having to adapt, and there's doing those things. The reality is, in everything, whether you're at home or you're at your job, change is part of life. So
Right.
if you embrace it and you look for the opportunities to make things better, again, at home or at your work, in the long run, you're going to be way better off, and you're going to be happier.
Sure. And the reality is Colorado Springs fire will look different tomorrow, even though it may be something completely minor that you can't pinpoint, but it will be different tomorrow and it will be different the day after and 10 years from now, even different still.
Right.
As we wrap it up today, Randy, and I appreciate the great conversation that we've had, what's one leadership lesson that you had to learn the hard way along the way throughout your career?
Well, this is actually kind of a funny one. Having bad bosses,
Uh-huh.
early on in my career, it's always hard to have a supervisor or boss or a officer above you that just is not a good person, right? So you have to learn. I used to have a notebook that I go, okay, here's a good boss. I want to do that. I want to do that. Here's a bad boss. I don't want to be doing that when I get to that level. And I remember doing that before I became a company officer. It's like, here's the things I don't want to do. Please help me not do those type of
Mhm.
things. Here's the things I want to emulate. But the reality is, all of us are going to have a bad boss at some point, right? So take that as an opportunity. Obviously, if it's the point of either risking safety or doing something that's unethical, or no, not set in integrity at some point, and I have had to do this in my career. You've got to step up and challenge that, or take it to the
Mhm.
person that can challenge it, because that's the right thing to do. That's a hard thing to do, but you need to do it. Outside of that, just the ones that aren't in the unethical, lack of integrity, or getting somebody killed, you as a follower have to work in that situation, right? So try to make the best of it. Try to be your best self. Hopefully you can help that leader be better by being your best self. That's a hard place to be.
Mhm.
But again, it's the right thing for the mission, and again, take those lessons learned so that you can help those around you be better people and work through it, and you'll get through it.
I think that's such a great takeaway, right? Like you have people, and I don't want to say it's a generational thing or be the old guy that says that, but like you see, it seems like you get a lot of folks that are younger now saying, "No, I'm just going to say no. I'm not going to do that." Right? Whatever they may find distasteful, or if they categorize their boss as being a bad boss, but like I think there's something to be said about what you just said. Short of the illegal, immoral, unethical, why don't we just embrace it and say, "Hey, I'm gonna learn something from this," right? It may not be something that I like, or I may not appreciate that style. It may not be my own style, but there's so many growth opportunities out there that if you just kinda, I'm not saying you have to go along with everything, but,
Right.
like, find it as a learning opportunity.
Yes.
All right, Chief, as we wrap it up today, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your insight and your perspective. Your career here in Colorado has had so much impact, not only in Colorado Springs, but in the fire service as a whole. For our listeners, if you found this episode valuable, please share it with your team or anyone who might benefit from these conversations. Don't forget to subscribe to the Convergent Impact Leadership Podcast on your favorite platform and leave a review to help others find these conversations as well. For more leadership tools and resources, visit convergentimpact.com. And as always, until next time, lead well, take care of your people, and keep setting the example.
Appreciate the time.